Hi guys, and welcome to a new video, and welcome to the channel if you're new here. I'm Ollie and this is Turner's Workshop, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to test your car's battery and alternator, and I'll also be showing you how to replace your car battery if necessary. I can only assume you've clicked on this video because you're having trouble with your car not starting. If you've left it overnight and you come back to it and it won't turn over, or it's just turning over really slow and it's sluggish to start, more than likely you've got a duff battery, but I'll just be showing you how to check the alternator in this video as well. And if you haven't already checked out my other video about this Yabba Auto APO2 car jump starter, it might be worth checking that one out. It's always handy to have a little portable jump pack in the case where you get stuck and you've got a flat battery.
And you can also use it for pumping up your tyres.
One key factor which will give us a good indication as to whether it's your battery at fault is the age of it, because batteries have a life expectancy. There are two different types of battery that could be used in your car. Either you'll have an SLA type battery or an AGM. SLA is a traditional type of lead acid battery. It stands for sealed lead acid, and it's typically used in vehicles before stop-start technology came in. So all trucks, lorries and motorbikes, everything before start-stop technology will more than likely have a traditional lead acid battery. Now that type of battery will last between 3 to 5 years depending on how it's looked after. So if it's getting on for 5 years old, then more than likely that will be the culprit, and it's probably worth replacing it anyway. Most newer vehicles now with start-stop technology tend to use AGM type batteries, so absorbent glass mat. They last a bit longer, between 5 to 7 years, and again that's all dependent on how you look after the battery. If you let your car sit for a long period of time and the battery discharge right down, then you're more than likely to damage it, and it will shorten the life expectancy of the battery. So just keep it topped up and make sure you use your vehicles, because it's not good for them just sitting there. Either that or put it on a trickle charger to keep the battery topped up. So with that being said, and we know that batteries have a life expectancy, how do we know how old our battery is? Now if you got your car from new and it's still on the original battery, your car's getting on between 5 and 7 years old, and you're having starting issues, then more than likely it's going to be the battery at fault. So you'll have to get that replaced, and I'll show you how to replace it in this video. But if you don't know when your battery was last replaced and you don't know the age of the battery, I'll show you where you can find the date on it so you can work out how old it is, and that will give you a good idea as to whether that is the problem. Right, let's get into it and let me show you how to test the battery and the alternator.
So make sure you order the right size battery for your car. You can see all the stats you need are clearly labelled on it. This is an AGM battery. The size of it is 096. It's got 760 cold cranking amp capacity, which means it will produce 760 amps for 30 seconds at 0 degrees Fahrenheit while maintaining at least 7.2 volts. It's got a 70 amp hour capacity, and in the top right hand corner you can see the date on this battery. It says the 2nd of the 10th 2021, but the date may be stamped in a different place on the battery, so just give it a check over and it should tell you.
This is my multimeter, and I'm going to set it to volts DC. So that's volts AC and that's volts DC there. I'll put a link in the description to a basic multimeter if you want to get one. You can pick them up relatively cheap. This is quite a fancy one because it's got auto ranging features, and I use it quite often. And then we're going to check the voltage. So put your black lead on the negative terminal and the red one on the positive.
To get an accurate reading, I'd recommend taking your car for at least a half an hour drive before carrying out this test. That should give the alternator enough time to fully charge the battery, and then when you get back from the drive, let the battery rest for at least 2 hours before checking the voltage.
The car engine's been off for a couple of hours and I've allowed the battery to rest, so it's reading 12.57, 12.56 resting. That's a healthy battery. It should measure anywhere between 12.4 and 12.7, 12.8. That's a healthy resting voltage.
Anything below 12.2 volts suggests that you've got a weak battery, but you could have it load tested just to confirm it, and I'll talk about that in a moment.
I'm now going to go and start the engine, and you can see what the alternator is putting out, and that way we can test whether the alternator is working properly.
Your alternator should put out between 13.5 volts and 14.7 volts. If it's on the lower end of that scale or below, then likely you've got high resistance between the alternator cable and the battery terminals. So you might want to look out for corrosion and maybe clean up the posts, things like that, clean up the battery connections. If it's on the higher end of the scale and above 14.7 volts, then you could be damaging the battery and likely you've got regulator issues inside the alternator.
And we can see our alternator's putting out 14.7 volts. So that's healthy, it's now charging the battery. So our alternator's good, our battery's good, but I'm going to show you how to replace it anyway, just in case you need to. The last test we could do on the battery is a load test or a drop test, where you test the battery under load, but you need specialist equipment for that, which most of us don't have. So you can actually take it to a decent local auto centre and they'll be able to test your battery for free. And that's probably the easiest method for checking your battery, but this will just give you a few ideas of what to look for.
Just so you can see, nothing. For demonstration purposes, I've put a dead battery on this car so you can see what reading you'd expect with a dead battery. So put your negative on the negative, positive on the positive, and you can see we're getting around 7 volts. So that is flat as a witch's tit. If you find out that your battery is not that old and your alternator is putting out the correct charging voltage, then it could be that the battery's been discharged heavily at some point and it's been damaged. You could try a pulse repair charger on this to try and bring the cells back to life, and I'll put a link to one of those in the description below, but it might be that you still have to replace it anyway. I start by disconnecting the negative terminal on the battery, so for that you're just going to need a 10mm socket. I then just put an insulated glove over the battery clamp so that it can't make contact with the negative battery post. We always start by disconnecting the negative first so that when we remove the positive there's no chance of it arcing against any metal parts of the body. There's a securing clamp down the side of the battery which holds it in place, and that's got a 13mm bolt in it, so just take that out. You'll need an extension bar with a 13mm socket to get down there. So once you've removed the bolt you can take the clamp out and then you can remove the battery. We can now get our new battery and slide it in position. They are a bit bulky, so you might need a hand with this, depends how strong you're feeling. So just put that in position, slide it in, and then you can refit the battery holder with the 13mm bolt. It can be a little bit fiddly to get this bracket back in position. It's got a tab on it that has to slot into the base. So just line that up and then you should be able to drop it in position. And then you can refit the 13mm bolt and just nip it up. It doesn't have to be mega tight. Don't forget to put the jacket on your battery if you've got one, because once you've connected the cables you won't be able to get this on. So just fit this around your battery to keep it nice and warm. Your batteries like to be nice and warm and cozy. They don't like being cold. A bit like me, I don't like being cold. So once you've put the jacket on your battery, we can then reconnect the positive first this time, and that way we're not going to create any sparks against the body. So just secure the clamp down onto the battery post, and now we can remove our glove from the negative terminal, and then we can refit the negative terminal onto the battery. So just secure that down using your 10mm socket. I then apply a bit of dielectric grease over the battery terminals. This doesn't go between the battery post and the clamp, it just goes on top of it to stop the battery clamps oxidizing and going rusty. When you disconnect the battery, you will lose your saved radio stations, and you'll also have to set your clock because it will go back to 0. Now don't be alarmed when you turn the ignition on and you have lots of different errors come up. You're going to get an error for everything. So we've got an ACC error, stabilization control error, stop start system error, auto hold error, ACC and front assist not available, proactive passenger protection not available, tyre pressure loss indicator error. But don't be alarmed, because when you start driving all of these errors should clear automatically and the car will realise that there aren't actually any faults, it was just that the battery was disconnected. If your car's got a BMS, a battery monitoring system, you'll be able to tell because it will have this black connector here on the negative terminal. This is a shunt.
you should have it programmed to let the car know that it's got a new battery on it. And for that, you're going to need a VAGCOM or OBD2, I think you'll need, diagnostics tool to let it know that it's got a new battery on it. I don't have any of that diagnostics equipment, so I'm just going to see how it gets on. And I'll let you know. Stay tuned if you want to know if it causes any issues. I'm sure it'll be fine. I fitted that battery back in 2021, so it's been on there 4 years now, and we're doing all right so far. Touch wood. I believe it just adjusts the alternator charging voltage to help preserve the life of the battery. So it knows it's got a new one, it adjusts the voltage, the charging voltage, but it's constantly monitoring that anyway. So I don't really see how it makes much of a difference unless you're changing the type of battery. But this is a like-for-like replacement. So if you know any more about that, let me know in the comments. But for now, we'll just see how we get on. We've spoken about how the age of the battery affects its performance, and I've showed you how to check the age of it. I've showed you how to carry out a voltage test on the battery and the alternator using a multimeter, and then I showed you how to replace your car battery if you need to. I hope you found value in this video and you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and if you click that alarm bell, you'll get notifications when I post new videos. And I've got loads of different videos on the channel now, so please check it out. If you need to do any maintenance on your Golf, or you want to learn how to build a camper van, check it out.
One last thing, if you're still with me, this is a pulse repair charger, and I'm going to be using it to try and restore this old battery. So I just connect up the battery clamps, put it in pulse repair mode, and this will pulse the battery with varying voltages to gradually try and bring the cells back to a healthy condition. Think of it as giving the battery a gentle massage. On that note, it's time to end this video. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys, take care.